Hi everybody, Mark Moorhead here, Curator of Education at the Hall of Flame Museum of Firefighting in Phoenix, Arizona. We are the world's largest historical firefighting museum, and if you can't come into the museum, we'll bring the museum to you. And today we're in Gallery 2, and we're going to talk a little Smokey Stover, in comic strips. I mean, you think about firefighters in the movies, both funny comical firefighters in the movies and also serious firefighters in the movies. You think about in TV shows like Emergency, very, very important figures in sort of pop culture include some firefighters. We get to the funny papers. On the police side, you have Dick Tracy. But on the firefighter side, you don't have anybody that kind of two-fisted. You got Smokey Stover, the foolish Foo Fighter, as they called him. And Smokey Stover was a comic strip that ran out of the Chicago Tribune Syndicate from the 1930s until the very early 1970s. And the cartoonist was a man named Bill Holman. He was an Indiana guy. He was born in Crawfordsville, and he grew up in the town of Napanee, Indiana. And in Napanee, you will find that to this day, the fire department is called, the volunteer fire department is called the Napanee Smokey Stovers, and that was in honor of one of their famous sons. But he thought about becoming a firefighter as a kid, I guess like a lot of kids do, but he had a real talent for art. He studied at the Chicago Institute of Fine Art, and he started doing cartoons, and his big regular strip, which ran for nearly 40 years, in newspapers all over the country, was Smokey Stover. And Smokey was kind of a wacky firefighter who had all kinds of crazy adventures. And he had his goofy chief Cashew Nut and his wife and Cookie and their son Earl, and there were some animals. Spooky the cat was a character, and this went on for years. And he's not that much remembered now. I mean, you can get just a glimpse of a Smokey Stover cartoon, comic, I should say, in the movie A Christmas Story. You can see it under when Ralphie's doing his decoder ring. You can see there's a Smokey Stover thing there, and occasionally there's some reference. Some firefighters are occasionally known by that nickname. I've met a few of them here at the Hall of Flame over the years, but in general, it's not one of the comic strips that sort of people remember. So we want to kind of keep his memory alive, Smokey's memory alive here. So we got a few items here on display, a comic book, what they called a better little book, and we have a strip and a premium pen and a couple of other things, and we have a handmade wall plaque from Napanee that some firefighter there probably made for the wall in his house. We also have a piece of original art by Bill Holman. This was drawn in 1971, and it was drawn by Holman at the request of a firefighter named Louis Volpe, who wanted a patch designed by Holman of Smokey Stover for his patch in Byram Township in New Jersey. And obviously, Holman was very gracious about these things. There are a number of departments that have these designs by him. And they do use this patch. As of 2020, this patch was still in use by Byram County's department. You see it here. But this piece of art, which Fireman Volpe saved, was obviously the other alternative, and he just saved it. And it came to us after Fireman Volpe passed on a few years ago, and we're very proud to have a piece of original Bill Holman art here on display here at the museum. And probably the real cultural legacy, if you want to call it that came out of Smokey Stover was the style of humor that Bill Holman had. He was really kind of a nut. It was this very strange, surreal, non sequitur, inside joke kind of humor, where he would use these catchphrases like Notary Sojaks and 1506 Nix Nix. He would just throw these phrases out as if they had some kind of meaning, and supposedly if you asked him what they meant, he'd give you a different explanation every time. But the one that people really remember the most, and it's right on the cover here, is Foo Fighter. Smokey was called the Foolish Foo Fighter, sort of a very odd variation on firefighter, but that kind of caught on with the public. And in World War II fighter pilots used the phrase Foo Fighter as a slang term for UFOs. But it also, and then of course later, younger people will remember that it was the name of a pretty popular rock band, American rock band in the 90s. But it traces its lineage back to Bill Holman and Smokey Stover. So it's just one of the little side exhibits that we have here that you can check out at the museum. I am Mark, Curator of Education at the Hall of Fame Museum of Firefighters. See you in the funny papers.